Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at this research report that really digs into the world of Polish academics,
Oh, wow.
specifically those in STEM fields.
Okay.
So we're talking science, technology, engineering,
Right.
mathematics, and medicine, and we're really trying to figure out
Yeah.
what makes them tick when it comes to research productivity
Interesting.
and maybe some of the things that hold them back.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting about this report is that it's not just a snapshot in time, right?
Okay.
It actually tracks these academics' careers over time.
So you're saying we can kind of rewind and fast forward?
Exactly.
See how their work changes?
Yes, you can see the patterns, the ebbs and flows.
Wow. Okay. So who exactly are we looking at in this report?
So the report focuses on academics that have achieved something called Dr. Habilitoni,
Okay.
which is basically like a higher doctorate
Got it.
or habilitation you might find in some other systems.
Okay.
It's a pretty big deal.
So these are the experts.
Yeah, the real experts in their field.
Okay.
And specifically ones that have published in internationally recognized journals
Gotcha.
indexed by Scopus.
Right. So we're dealing with a pretty elite group of people
For sure.
publishing in the best journals.
Yeah.
So how do you even begin to measure research productivity? I mean, isn't that kind of a tricky thing?
It is. It's a very complex question to answer.
Right.
And just counting papers doesn't tell the whole story.
Right. Not all journals are made equal.
Exactly. Publishing in Nature,
Big deal.
huge deal, versus a smaller niche publication.
Right. Right.
Right.
So how does the report take this into account?
So they actually use 4 different ways to measure productivity.
Okay.
Some focus on just raw numbers of publications,
Right.
but some of them bring in the prestige
Yeah.
of those journals.
Okay.
And this helps make sure we're comparing apples to apples
It makes sense.
across different fields.
Yeah. I imagine looking at thousands of academics, it could get
Overwhelming.
overwhelming fast. So how do they make sense of all of it?
Okay, well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
They use something called deciles of productivity.
Deciles of productivity. Okay.
So imagine you take all the academics in a specific field
Right.
and you divide them into 10 buckets
Okay.
based on how much they're putting out there.
Gotcha. So the top 10% most productive are all lumped together.
Precisely, regardless of their raw numbers,
Right.
everyone's in the same bucket.
Okay. That makes sense. So you can compare across fields then.
You can compare a chemist to a historian,
Right.
even if their output's totally different.
Interesting. And this leads to one of the most surprising findings,
Right,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a really high level of what we call stickiness
Stickiness.
in these productivity rankings.
Okay. So like flypaper or something.
Kind of.
What exactly does that mean?
Well, the report found that if an academic was killing it during their doctorate,
Yeah.
they were much more likely to keep killing it
Oh, wow.
after they achieved that Dr. Habilitoni.
So it's those early career patterns that really set the stage.
Absolutely. They have a huge influence on their long-term trajectory.
So those early wins, maybe they build confidence,
Right.
give you the skills you need, or even better resources.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question to consider.
And is this stickiness only true for the high achievers?
Well, no, actually, they found a very similar trend for those who are less productive early on.
So the people that were struggling early on,
Tended to keep struggling, yeah.
that's really interesting. It really shows how important
Huge.
those early years are
Absolutely.
and makes you think about what kind of support could help you,
Right.
whether you're excelling or,
Absolutely.
facing challenges. What about the people in the middle?
Ah, good question.
Did they see a lot of moving up or down?
So they did actually find that about a third of academics
Okay.
shifted between those deciles over time.
Okay, so it's not completely static.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
There's definitely some movement.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, you can climb that ladder or sometimes slip down.
So we've been talking about patterns, but how do they actually figure out what's driving these differences?
Well, that's where they get into statistical modeling,
Okay.
specifically using something called logistic regression.
Okay. Logistic regression. That sounds a little technical.
It can be.
Can you break it down for us?
Imagine you're trying to predict whether a researcher will end up in the top 10%
Okay.
or the bottom 10%.
Got it.
Logistic regression helps us isolate the impact of different things,
Okay.
like age, gender, how fast they moved up in their career,
Yeah.
and see how that affects the outcome.
So it's not just about seeing a connection. It's about really understanding what factors have the strongest influence.
Exactly.
I'm hooked. Tell me, what did they find?
Okay, so the most significant predictor of being a top researcher
Drum roll, please.
was being in the top decile during their doctorate.
Uh-huh. So early patterns matter.
It really does. It's like setting a precedent for success.
But I'm sure early success isn't the only thing.
Of course not. There are other factors at play.
Like what?
Well, one thing they found is that younger Dr. habilitoani,
Younger?
yeah,
Okay.
the more likely to be highly productive.
Interesting. So there's something to be said for that youthful energy.
Maybe so.
Does that mean older academics are doomed?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
These are just statistical likelihoods, not guarantees.
Okay.
And they also emphasize something called academic age.
Academic age.
It's basically how many years it's been since you published your first research.
So a measure of experience.
Exactly.
Got it.
And the longer your academic age, the more likely you are to be productive.
Okay, so the more you publish.
The more you learn,
Makes sense.
you build your network,
Yeah.
you hone your skills.
Okay, what else did those models tell us?
Well, this is where it gets a little tricky.
Okay.
They found that gender also played a role,
Oh, interesting.
but only when they used a specific method called fractional counting.
Fractional counting. Hold on, I need to catch up here. We've talked about how they measure productivity in different ways.
Right.
What's fractional counting?
It's basically giving authors partial credit
Okay.
for publications with multiple authors,
Right.
so it weights their contribution based on things like author order,
Makes sense.
because the first author usually does more.
Right, right.
So in these models, being male
Yeah.
actually increased the odds of being highly productive.
That's a really interesting finding. Makes you think about,
It does.
all sorts of things. Do men have more chances to lead projects?
Right.
Be the first author?
Right.
Do women face more obstacles with funding or, getting the recognition they deserve?
Tough questions.
This report doesn't give us all the answers, but it certainly highlights the need to dig deeper.
Absolutely.
Okay, so any other factors that jumped out?
One more thing.
Yeah.
The speed of career progression.
Oh, okay.
So those who got to Dr. Habilitoani faster
Yeah.
tended to be more productive.
So it's not just about starting strong, but maintaining that momentum.
Exactly. You got to keep moving fast.
Like a speedy tortoise winning the race.
I like that.
And the models for low productivity showed a similar but opposite pattern.
Right. Older academics,
Yeah.
fewer years since that first publication,
Okay.
longer time to reach Dr. Habilitoani,
Yeah.
all more likely to be in that bottom decile.
It's amazing how those early choices
Yeah.
and experiences can really set the stage for the future.
Absolutely.
That's a lot for our listeners to think about,
A lot to unpack.
especially if you're early in your research journey.
It is, but even if you aren't, there's always room to grow
That's good to hear.
throughout your career.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the report's conclusions.
Yeah.
What were the key takeaways?
One of the most fascinating is how influential those early patterns are.
Yeah.
They really shape your long-term trajectory.
Right? Like we've been saying.
It is, and this actually links to a concept they talk about in the literature review called a cumulative advantage.
A cumulative advantage?
It's basically the idea that early success
Yeah.
can lead to more opportunities,
Yeah.
more resources,
Yeah.
even more visibility,
Right.
and that just boosts productivity even more.
So the rich get richer, but in this case, the
After-
productive get more productive.
Exactly, and it makes you wonder what's really going on there.
Yeah. What is it about those early stages that sets you on that course?
Right. Is it just skills or work ethic?
Yeah.
Or is there something else?
Something deeper, maybe.
Right. It's fascinating to think about.
I think it's probably a mix of things.
Right.
Individual factors and the environment you're in.
Right.
To be fair, the report does mention some limitations,
Yeah.
what they call success bias.
Basically because they're focusing on those who have already achieved Dr. Habilitoani
Okay.
and are actively publishing.
Right.
We're only seeing a slice of the picture.
Right. We're missing all the people who
Right.
maybe started strong,
Exactly.
but for whatever reason didn't keep going.
For sure.
So maybe those early patterns aren't as influential as it seems.
It's possible.
But still, the findings are pretty compelling.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So to recap what we've learned so far, early career patterns really matter.
Huge.
Those who start strong tend to keep going.
Yeah.
And factors like age, academic age, gender, how fast you move up your career,
Right.
and the prestige of the journals you publish in all play a role.
They do.
But the biggest predictor,
Past performance.
it all comes back to that.
It does.
So for our listeners out there, especially if you're early in your journey,
Yeah,
take this to heart. Building a strong foundation now can really pay off later.
absolutely.
But don't get discouraged if things don't go perfectly.
Right.
Or if your path is a little different.
There's always room to grow.
Absolutely. And we'll be right back after a short break.
Sounds good.
to dive even deeper into this research.
Can't wait.
Okay, we're back and ready to keep digging into this research on Polish academics in STEM fields.
Yeah.
Before the break, we were talking about a cumulative advantage.
Right.
That idea that early success can snowball into even more success.
Yeah, like a chain reaction almost.
Exactly. It makes you wonder what's really behind it, you know?
It does. Why do those early stages seem to have such a big impact?
Right. Is it just about building the right skills, or is there more to it?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Like, are some people just born to be research rock stars?
Interesting question.
Or is it more about the environment they're in, the mentors they have?
Right, the opportunities they get.
It's probably a mix of everything, right?
Yeah, most likely a combination of individual traits
Right.
and external factors.
And we have to remember that this report is only looking at a specific group of people.
That's true. These are all academics who have already made it, you know?
Right. They've achieved that higher doctorate.
Exactly, and are actively publishing.
So there's a whole other story out there about the people who maybe didn't reach that same level.
Maybe they started strong, but didn't keep going for whatever reason.
Exactly. So we're only seeing part of the picture.
We are, but even with those limitations, the report's findings are still valuable.
They are, and I think it's especially important for those who are early in their careers.
Yeah, knowing that those early experiences matter so much can be a bit intimidating.
It can be, but it can also be motivating, you know?
It's like a push to really make the most of those early opportunities.
Exactly, to build those strong foundations and develop good habits.
Right, but it's also important to remember that not everyone's path is going to be linear.
That's true. Some people might take a more winding road.
Exactly, and that's okay. There's value in diverse experiences.
Right. Sometimes those detours can lead to unexpected discoveries.
It's all about finding a balance.
Yeah, between recognizing the importance of early momentum, but also embracing the individuality of each person's journey.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to a research career.
Okay, so for our listeners out there, what are some practical takeaways from this report?
Let's see. Well, one of the biggest things is to be proactive.
Proactive, okay.
Don't wait for opportunities to fall into your lap.
Right, go out and find them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Seek out mentors.
Yeah.
Collaborate with people who inspire you.
Right.
Look for ways to expand your skills.
So it's about taking charge of your own development.
It is, and it's also about being mindful of your surroundings.
Well, yeah.
The people you work with, the institution you're part of.
Yeah.
All of that can have a big impact on your success.
So it's about finding a supportive environment.
Right, a place where you can thrive.
And I think it's important to remember that productivity isn't just about publishing papers.
It's not. It's about making meaningful contributions.
Right, asking important questions.
Exactly.
And pursuing knowledge in a way that's both rigorous and fulfilling.
It's about finding that passion.
Yeah.
And letting it drive your work.
I like that. Now I'm curious about the implications of this research for institutions.
Oh, interesting.
You know, given what we've learned about productivity,
Yeah.
are there things they could do to better support researchers?
I think so. For one thing, they could broaden their definition of success.
Okay, so not just focusing on publications.
Right. Look at the bigger picture, things like teaching, mentorship,
Yeah.
community engagement, even the impact of the research on society.
So recognizing the many ways that researchers contribute.
Exactly. And they could also create more flexible career paths.
Okay, so not everyone has to follow the same timeline.
Exactly. Support people who need to take breaks.
Yeah.
Offer more professional development opportunities.
It's about being more human-centered.
It is creating a system that values and supports the individual.
And recognizing that research is a long game.
It's not about instant gratification.
Yeah.
It's about nurturing that curiosity,
Yeah.
that commitment to discovery.
I think that's a great point to bring this all together.
It is.
This deep dive isn't just about understanding productivity.
It's about using that knowledge to make things better.
Exactly. To create a more supportive and inspiring academic world.
A place where researchers can truly flourish.
Love it. So as we wrap up this part of the episode, I want to leave our listeners with a thought.
Okay.
As you think about your own research journey, remember that success is a process.
It is a journey.
Embrace the challenges, celebrate the wins, and never stop learning.
And remember, you're not alone in this.
There's a whole community out there facing the same challenges and pushing the boundaries of knowledge in their own way.
That's what it's all about.
We'll be right back to wrap things up and leave you with some final food for thought. And we are back for the final part of our deep dive. I feel like we've really gone deep into this report.
We have. It's been quite a journey.
It has, from those early career patterns to all the things that can influence a researcher's path.
Yeah, it's really complex.
So as we wrap things up, what are your final thoughts about what this all means?
Well, I think the big takeaway is that those early experiences really matter.
Yeah.
They can set the stage for your whole career.
Like we were saying before, those early wins.
Right.
The mentors you find, the habits you build.
It all has a lasting impact.
It's like laying the foundation for a building.
Exactly.
If you get it right from the start.
You're in a much better position.
Exactly. But it also makes you think about what institutions can do
Right.
to support researchers at every stage.
Absolutely. And I think this research is a wake-up call for them.
Okay, so
They need to move beyond those traditional measures of success.
not just counting publications.
Exactly. It's about looking at the bigger picture.
Okay, so things like teaching,
Yes.
mentorship,
Absolutely.
community engagement even.
All of it recognizing the many ways that researchers contribute.
It's about creating a culture where everyone feels valued and supported.
Exactly. And where they can take risks and explore new ideas.
And not feel pressured to publish at all costs.
Exactly. Research is a marathon, not a sprint.
I love that analogy. It's about fostering a love of learning,
Right.
a commitment to discovery,
Absolutely. And a willingness to embrace the unknown.
even if it means making mistakes along the way.
That's part of the process.
I think those are some really powerful words to end on.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening out there, no matter where you are in your journey,
Yeah.
embrace the process, find those mentors who believe in you,
Yeah.
and never stop asking questions.
The world needs your curiosity, your unique perspective.
Exactly. And remember, your contributions are valuable.
They are, even if your path is a little unconventional.
That's a great reminder. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next time.